Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
The day I moved into my condo, I thought I was stepping into a dream. The building was everything I'd ever hoped for. A sleek, modern design with clean lines and an air of sophistication that felt almost too good to be true. It was right in the heart of the city, close to all the action, yet somehow still quiet enough to feel like a retreat. My unit had floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the skyline, and every time I looked out, my heart seemed to soar a little higher. I could already picture hosting friends for dinner, sipping coffee on the balcony as the sun rose, and finally living the life I'd worked so hard to build. But dreams have a funny way of turning into nightmares. It didn't take long for that pristine image to crumble, thanks to an HOA board that seemed determined to prove they had no understanding of basic human decency or common sense. Their rules and decisions felt more like a bizarre power trip than anything designed to foster community or improve the property. It all started with the great dog debacle of 2024. I was sitting at my kitchen counter, sipping my morning coffee and scrolling through my emails when I nearly choked on my latte. There it was in black and white. Effective immediately, all dogs are banned from the premises. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and read it again. Nope, I wasn't hallucinating. I immediately called my neighbor Betty, who had the most adorable golden retriever named Max. She answered on the second ring, her usual cheerful tone replaced with something tight and anxious. "Did you see this?" I practically shouted into the phone, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. I didn't even bother with a greeting. There wasn't time for pleasantries. "I'm looking at it right now," Betty replied, her voice trembling just enough to betray how upset she was. I could hear the crinkle of paper in the background, like she was gripping the notice so hard it might tear. "What are we supposed to do?" she continued, her words coming faster now. "Max's family. We can't just get rid of him. He's been with me through everything, losing Greg, moving here, all of it. I'm not abandoning him because of some ridiculous HOA rule." Her words hit me hard. I could picture Max curled up at her feet, his big, soulful eyes looking up at her as if he knew something was wrong. "Betty, there's no way they can enforce this," I said, trying to sound reassuring, even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. "This is insane. They can't just decide we can't have dogs anymore. It's not even legal, is it?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice breaking, "but they're threatening fines, and you know how they are. They'll stop at nothing to make life miserable. What if they try to evict me? What if—" She trailed off, and I could hear a sniffle on the other end of the line. "We're not letting this happen," I said firmly, gripping my phone like it was some kind of lifeline. "Max isn't going anywhere, and neither is anyone else's pet. We'll fight this, Betty, together. They don't get to destroy our lives over their stupid power trip." As it turned out, we weren't the only ones in a state of panic. The building was buzzing with angry voices and slamming doors. I ventured out into the hallway and found a group of residents huddled together, their faces a mix of confusion and rage. "This can't be legal," muttered Tom from 3B, clutching his chihuahua to his chest like it might disappear at any moment. "It's not," I said, remembering the stack of documents I'd pored over before buying my unit. "The declarations explicitly allow dogs. They'd need a 2/3 vote to change that." As we stood there trying to make sense of this bizarre turn of events, the elevator dinged. Out stepped Harold, our illustrious HOA president, looking as smug as ever in his perfectly pressed suit. "Ah, I see you've all received the notice," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I know it's a difficult change, but it's for the best." "How is this for the best?" Betty demanded, her eyes flashing. "And how exactly did this decision get made without any of us knowing about it?" Harold's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. Now," he said, patting Betty on the arm in a way that made my skin crawl. "I'm sure we can work something out for certain residents." And just like that he was gone, leaving us all staring at each other in disbelief. Over the next few days a strange pattern emerged. Some residents were told they could keep their dogs, while others were left in limbo. It didn't take long for us to connect the dots. The unit directly below Harold's had recently been vacated by a dog owner, and it seemed our esteemed president was determined to keep it that way. The whole situation stank worse than a neglected litter box, and we weren't about to let it slide. A group of us got together and started digging into our HOA bylaws. Lo and behold, we discovered we could call a special meeting if 20% of owners requested it. We hit the pavement, knocking on doors and collecting signatures faster than you could say corrupt HOA board. When Harold and his cronies got wind of our petition, all hell broke loose. Suddenly our inboxes were flooded with emails accusing us of being troublemakers and ungrateful. One particularly nasty message suggested we should be thankful for their selfless volunteerism instead of causing problems. Despite the pushback, we persevered. The day of the special meeting arrived, and I found myself sitting in front of my laptop, heart pounding as I waited for the Zoom call to begin. As faces began popping up on the screen, I could feel the tension crackling through the virtual air. Harold's face appeared, looking like he'd just sucked on a lemon. "Let's get this over with," he grumbled. We laid out our concerns: the lack of communication, the arbitrary rule changes, the need for regular board meetings where owners could ask questions. Simple stuff, right? Wrong. What followed was 2 hours of the most infuriating gaslighting I've ever experienced. The property manager, a woman named Karen, I kid you not, had the audacity to claim that buildings our size never have board meetings. I tried to interject, to point out that I knew for a fact this wasn't true, but every time I opened my mouth, Karen would start talking over me, her voice rising to drown me out. "We've been nothing but transparent," Harold insisted, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "If you have questions, you can always catch us in the hallway." "That's the problem," I shot back. "We shouldn't have to ambush you to get information about our own building." The meeting ended with nothing resolved. If anything, the divide between the board and the residents had grown even wider. As I closed my laptop, I felt a mixture of frustration and despair washing over me. But the dog fiasco and the disastrous meeting were just the beginning. A few months later, I came home to find the building decked out in enough Christmas lights to be visible from space. It looked like Santa's workshop had exploded all over our roof. "What the hell?" I muttered, shielding my eyes from the blinding display. I ran into my neighbor Mike in the lobby. He looked as bewildered as I felt. "Did you know about this?" I asked him. Mike shook his head. "Not a clue, but I overheard Harold's wife gushing about how she'd always wanted the building to look festive. Guess we know who's really calling the shots around here." When the electric bill came in, and we saw the astronomical cost of Harold's wife's festive vision, a group of us confronted him at the mailboxes. "Oh, that," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "The board approved it. It's a 3-year contract." 3 years, I sputtered. "We can't afford this." Harold's eyes narrowed. "If you don't like how things are run here, perhaps you should consider moving." The next year, like clockwork, the lights went up again. This time, when questioned, Harold claimed it was actually a 2-year contract. When we demanded to see this mysterious contract, he mumbled something about confidentiality and scurried away. But the real kicker came when strange things started happening on one of the top-floor decks. I first noticed it when I was out for a run one morning. Looking up at the building, I saw what looked like a giant plastic tent covering half of the 20th floor balcony. Curious, I asked around and found out the deck belonged to Elena, a sweet older woman who'd lived in the building since it was built. When I ran into her in the elevator, I casually brought it up. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice low as if someone might be listening. "I wish I knew. I came home one day and all my plants were gone. Those big concrete planters empty, and this structure on my deck." When I asked Harold about it, he told me it was building maintenance, and that I shouldn't worry my pretty little head about it. I felt my blood begin to boil. "That's your private property, they can't just—" Elena put a hand on my arm. "I know, dear, but when I tried to talk to the workers, Harold nearly bit my head off. Said I was interfering with official HOA business. I'm scared to push it any further." As the weeks went by, more and more residents noticed the strange goings-on. Rumors started flying. Some said there was a major leak into the commercial space below, a space owned by a powerful local company. Others whispered about structural issues that the board was trying to cover up. Every time someone tried to get answers, they were met with stonewalling, misdirection, or outright hostility. It felt like we were living in some bizarre authoritarian regime, where asking questions was treated as an act of treason. The final straw came when I overheard Harold and Karen whispering in the lobby about a potential special assessment. My stomach dropped. With the way they'd been mismanaging funds, I could only imagine how astronomical that bill would be. That night I sat in my living room, staring out at the city lights. This place that had once felt like home now felt like a prison. The constant stress, the feeling of powerlessness, the knowledge that at any moment some new arbitrary rule could upend my life. It was all too much. With a heavy heart, I made the decision to sell. I knew I'd probably take a loss, given the state of things, but I couldn't see any other way out. As I started the process, I agonized over what to disclose to potential buyers. How could I in good conscience subject someone else to this nightmare? In the end, I decided to be as honest as I could with my real estate agent, sharing the little concrete information I had. The rest, well, I supposed ignorance could be bliss. After all, if the shit really hit the fan down the line, It would be the board's lies coming back to haunt them, not mine. As I packed up my belongings, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and sadness. This place had once held so much promise. Now it was just another cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of community involvement. I took one last look around my condo, remembering the excitement I'd felt when I first moved in. If only I'd known then what I know now. But hey, that's life, right? Sometimes you think you're buying into a dream, only to find yourself trapped in a nightmare of your own making. As I closed the door behind me for the last time, I couldn't help but wonder what fresh hell awaited the next unsuspecting buyer. Part of me wanted to stand outside with a sandwich board warning people away. But in the end, all I could do was walk away, hoping that someday, somehow, the residents would find a way to take back control of their home. Until then, I'd be watching from a safe distance, grateful to have escaped the clutches of the HOA from hell. You should absolutely contact a lawyer as soon as possible. It's completely unacceptable for an HOA to operate without holding regular meetings, producing minutes, or providing transparent financial accounts. These are fundamental legal requirements for any HOA or similar governing entity. Without them, there's no accountability or oversight, which opens the door to all kinds of potential mismanagement or even outright fraud. A lawyer can help you determine whether they're violating state laws or their own bylaws, and they can guide you on how to demand compliance or even take legal action if necessary. Don't let them get away with this kind of negligence. It's your right as a homeowner to know exactly how decisions are being made and how your money is being spent. You're absolutely out of your mind with this suggestion. What's the actual benefit here? OP has already made it clear that he wants out and is willing to take the financial loss just to be done with this nightmare. And now you're proposing he dive headfirst into a costly, time-consuming lawsuit against the board. All that's going to do is drain his energy, empty his wallet, and turn him into public enemy number one in the eyes of his neighbors. For what exactly? To prove a point? To try and fix a system that's clearly beyond repair? Sometimes the smartest move is to cut your losses and walk away, not throw good money after bad just for the sake of a fight. You give too much credit to the property manager. Why talk to her about stuff like that anyway? The PM is just an employee of the HOA, therefore of you, and should do what you guys tell them. They can't make shit up, they just go by the shit that's in your rules and regs. Now, I know you said you want out, so it's too late to even have this convo, I suppose. But you seem to have enough interested people who are upset at the current board. Why not hold a meeting, kick off the old board and put together a board of enthusiastic homeowners who actually want to hold meetings and run the HOA with the community in mind? What happened there, I think, is a bunch of lazy HOA board members, in name only, and one president who wants to act upon his authority, even though he must have misunderstood how far this authority goes, and who tells his employee, the PM, how to present his decisions on a platter to the rest of the community. It's a shitty way, but it's the result of lazy, uninterested and/or uninformed board members and a bunch of homeowners who until now also didn't show any initiative, or they would have called out earlier that there aren't any meetings, for example. Sad it came to this decision for you to move. I once moved too because of a shitshow HOA, but I'm now in one where engagement is really good and I can't complain at all. It helps that we don't meet over Zoom but have a physical meeting point, a clubhouse. Communication is so much easier when you're face to face.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.